First of all, I'd like to welcome Bart Hansen with the Clark County Utilities. He's the key accounts manager for Clark Public Utilities, and he's also a council member. So Bart, thank you so much for being here today. You're going to be talking about solar in Clark County.
Awesome. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah.
Good. Because sometimes I wonder, I just had to go out and buy myself some new AirPods as they started to get a little tinny. My name is Bart Hansen, and I'm with Clark Public Utilities. I was hired as, well, I've been there for 20 years. And most recently I was hired as a key accounts manager. So let's see, I deal with accounts that are large, medium commercial accounts. So think of like Lakeshore Athletic Club, think of Waste Connections, think of organizations of that size. And about 5 or 6 years ago, my boss came up to me and he goes, "Hey, do you want a side project?" And I'm like, "Well, what's that?" And he goes, "Well, it's residential solar." And I'm like, "Well, how much of my time is it going to take up?" And he's like, "Oh, not much, like, hardly anything." And so since then, I pretty much do solar at this point. I still do key accounts management, but the majority of my time is spent on solar. I also work on what we call high density loads. And that's customers who do Bitcoining or customers who have marijuana grow operations. And I mainly focus on the amount of power that they're using, because some of these organizations, which hits right into your realm as well, have figured out that it's a lot cheaper to, instead of getting a lease at a small industrial strip mall, they turn around and get a mortgage and put themselves in a home and use as much power as they possibly can there. And, when they're using 17 or 14,000 kilowatt hours a month, that hits our radar. Because at my house, which is all electric with 4 people living in it, we use about 17,000 kilowatt hours a year. So they're almost doing in 1 month what I'm doing in about a year. But we're here to talk about solar. Now, I call it net metering because to us, we don't, if it's wind, if it's solar, if it's hydro, it's all net metering to us. But I'm going to focus today on solar because that's kind of the buzz that's going on right now is, hey, let's go get some solar. And we totally support solar. But at the same time, we want our customers to be doing it under the right circumstances, and we want them to go fully aware of what they're moving into. Next slide. Clark Utilities, founded in 1938, over 200,000 customers. That's pretty much everybody in the Clark County area. We do have a smaller water department, and some customers have both. Others get it to their municipalities. Our CEO is Lena Whitler. We have 3 elected commissioners. Our revenue, $373 million a year. But really what I focus on, and I'm trying to get the updated numbers as far as 2017 is pretty old, is the average load. And that doesn't usually change too much. In fact, some years it just goes down, is about 550 average megawatts. That's a lot of energy. Our peak load is 1,074 megawatts. That would be a January night. We're a heat load region. So we're like in Southern California, they're a cooling load region. When we get really cold, that's when we need as much power as we can possibly get. 368 employees. We have a power plant on Lower River Road as you're heading out to like Frenchman's Bar. And that makes up about 250 megawatts. The rest of it we get from dams. And we do go to the open market every now and then. We're a BPA slice block customer. That's just a fancy word for saying we get first rights at the power that's coming out of the dams. All up along the Columbia and Snake, those are public dams, and we're sort of built with the purpose of serving the Pacific Northwest first and foremost. Now, talking about solar. When you're taking a look at this map, and this is from NREL, and NREL is basically saying this: if you live in these places, this is where you're going to get the most sun. And people say, hey, Clark County doesn't look like it's getting too much sun. And we all live here, so we know this. But at the same time, it's not really sun that does us in for solar in Clark County. That we have enough sun and the panels have enough efficiency to make solar worthwhile. What really gets us in Clark County is the price of electricity. We're cheap, dirt cheap. And when you take a look at other areas of the country, Hawaii Electric Company, when they have solar installed, basically, if they deliver it to you, it's 27 cents. If you deliver it back to them, it's only worth 8 cents. Not a smoking deal. In San Diego Gas and Electric, if you do it, they actually base it on the time of day. We call that time of use pricing. So a kilowatt hour is worth more at, let's say 2 p.m. than it is at midnight. And if you deliver to them at the peak, or they deliver to you, it's worth 61 cents. If you deliver to them, it's only worth 39. And then off peak, you see the numbers get a bit worse as well. But off peak, you're not going to be delivering too much to them in the middle of the night with solar. Taking a look at Clark Public Utilities, we are 8 cents a kilowatt hour. So, and that's what we credit the solar customers for as well. If they deliver anything to us, we credit them at the same rate that we charge them for whatever they deliver to our system. We don't have time of use rates. Our kilowatt hours are worth 8 cents at noon, 8 cents at midnight, and everywhere in between and after. And another nice thing that we do is solar can be used for your basic charge. So how does this whole solar thing work? What are the basics of it? I know this is a very fancy graph, but it does do a good job of illustrating kind of where the process goes. You have solar on your roof. The solar on your roof is going to be coming out DC. That's not something you can use at your house. You use AC at your house. So it's going to go from the solar panels to an inverter. That inverter is going to flip it to AC, something you can use at your house. And then from there, it's going to go to a production meter. That production meter is just measuring whatever you're producing. And then from there, it's going to want to go to your electric panel. And when it goes to your electric panel, it's going to want to go in your TV, your toaster, your HVAC system, wherever it can go in your house. And then if you have anything left over, it goes to Clark Public Utilities, and we credit you on your bill every month for whatever you deliver to our system. So we basically have a net meter, and that net meter's job is to basically give us 3 reads. What did the utility deliver to you? What did you deliver to us? And the net difference. So if you delivered to us 1,000 kilowatt hours and we delivered to you 500 kilowatt hours, then you're going to have a credit of 500 kilowatt hours on your bill for next month. You can carry a credit from month to month, from season to season, but not year to year. And a lot of folks are like, well, why can't I carry it year to year? State law has just basically said the best that you can do is generate what you use at your house, because they don't want everybody to become a generator, essentially. We didn't write the state law and can't say I'm a fan of it, but you know how these state law things work. You got to kind of follow them. So that's how solar works at the house. And a lot of folks, what they'll do is they'll say, Bart, what happened here? I generated 1,000 kilowatt hours, and yet Clark Public Utilities only received 500 kilowatt hours. And I'll say, well, it's because your house ate the difference. Your house basically ate 500 kilowatt hours, and that's 500 kilowatt hours that you never needed to buy from me. So you either save it or you get it credited on your bill. It definitely works out very well for the customer. Incentives. Incentives are a really big deal in solar. They make the difference. And when it comes to the federal incentives, that is a 26% federal tax credit. Now, what am I seeing in reality out in the field is every now and then, some retired couple that doesn't have to pay a lot of federal taxes will get solar. And I'll sit down with, or sit on the phone at this point and say, well, you know, how much are you paying on your federal taxes a year? And they'll say, well, you know, I'm paying $500 a year. I'm retired. I really don't have many assets, and you know, I'm not really getting any income. And then I wonder, how are you going to collect on 26% if you don't have the federal tax appetite to use it? and that's a concern that we have at Clark Public Utilities. We really focus on the elderly and making sure that if they are doing any energy efficiency measures, that's a heat pump or solar or insulation or windows, any of that stuff, we want them to be completely savvy on all the incentives and how they're going to be able to apply them. Regional, there's CPACER is not in play yet, but it will be in play at one point in time. CPACER has been kind of a nightmare in the real estate industry in California and Oregon, because what it basically does is it goes on your taxes. So if you go to sell the house, the loan goes with the sale of the house. Now in Clark County, what we're focusing on is to have it just for commercial properties. So it doesn't hit the residential real estate market, which is where it's been a pitfall of this program in other states. The county still needs to approve it. Once the county approves it, then we can put that in play. Rural Energy for America, the REAP grant. If somebody has a business out in the county and it is for agricultural purposes, they can utilize this grant. It takes about 50% of the project sometimes. So this is a big one if they can get it. Washington State has had incentives. Right now they're closed. These could cover half the cost of solar. So if some customers that were able to utilize, I'm sorry, CPACER, no, REAP, it was about 25% of the project. So if they were able to get the Washington State incentive and the REAP grant, they paid for 75% of their project, which is a smoking deal. Taking a look though, the Washington State incentives are closed. I've had a few people mention that somebody tried to sell them a Washington State incentive. I have to correct that misinformation lightning quick. Clark Public Utilities, we offer net metering. Same thing I went through before. If you deliver to our system, we will credit you at the same rate in which we charge you. I can't tell you how many times I have repeated that sentence in that fashion, the same way every time, because I want to clearly make it known to people that we never will pay you. We'll never pay you, regardless of what you see on Facebook, for that energy. We will credit you. And it is a really big deal when it comes down to, oh, but I generated more than what I used for the year. Why aren't you going to pay me? I was like, well, no, the documentation is signed, and everything that I have ever told you has been along this line. And that credit is applied monthly on their bill. I wish I could say it was crystal clear on their bill, but our bills were designed for 213,000 people. And the 1,700 people that are on solar, we have modified it for. And I love to go to our IS department and talk about how I'd like to change that. They're like, you're not touching the bill. So we are at where we are at. Let's see here. This is an old chart. And basically what it's basically saying is that the price of solar is going down and the demand is going up. This, in terms of size for the state of Washington, when you look at megawatts here, you're seeing 60 megawatts of, or I'm sorry, you're seeing around 60 megawatts of installed solar. And that was as of 2015, not counting the other years. Clark Public Utilities alone, we peak at 1,057 megawatts. So when you're looking at 50, 60 megawatts being installed in 2015 across the state, people like to say, well, we need to be installing more solar. Yes, we do. And I absolutely love solar. I'm going to go into why, but it's difficult to meet our needs in Clark County with just solar. In fact, it would be almost impossible at this point, but it is growing. And I wish I had a more recent version of this chart. And Puget Sound Solar was nice enough to put this together, but it does also show how everything bumps up with the incentives. And I'm going to go into that here in a second as well. Now, not to bore you too much with a bunch of numbers, and I am going to do my best, but I think that the important thing to look at with this chart is when you look at the bottom right, you can see year by year in Clark County, solar is bumping up. And 2015 and 2018 were incentive years. So you can see people really take advantage of those incentives. One of the couple of years that I find interesting are 2014 and 2020. 2020 didn't have any incentives for the Washington state, and it was a 26% for the federal incentive. 2014 had Washington state incentives, and it had a 30% federal tax credit. So the incentives are working, and more people are going to be installing this as time goes on, as the price continues to go down and the efficiency continues to go up. The next slide. Let's see here. Right now, when you look at total generation potential in kilowatts, notice I'm talking in kilowatts and not megawatts. We're at 12,661 roughly. That's 12.5 megawatts. We have a long way to go, because at one point in time, 4% of your 1996 load is what you are obligated to provide people with net metering. We have a long ways to go before we go there. But with 12.5 megawatts of solar, and our January at midnight peak is going to be 1,057, we have a long way to go before, in just Clark County, we can make that huge difference with solar. Getting started, how do people do this? Okay, how do they get involved in? I always love it when people call me first before they decide to get into solar, and you would be amazed how many people sign up for a $50,000 solar array by somebody just simply knocking at their door and saying, "Hi, I'm so-and-so with solar company." By the time that person leaves, they have a signed contract. And what I always focus on is go to our approved list. If you go on our website, we have an approved list, and it has about a dozen contractors in there. What you can do is give them all a call. We recommend getting at least 3 bids. Another thing that blows my mind is people will, spend $50,000 on a solar array, and I'll say, "Well, who else did you call?" Nobody. I mean, okay, so somebody knocked on your door, you signed a $50,000 contract with them, and you didn't shop it. No, I didn't think I would. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, would you walk into a car dealership, say, "I want that car at the sticker price, and I'm not going to look at the Kelley Blue Book, and I'm not going to look at other dealerships, and I'm not going to look online. I just want to buy the car at that price"? You would never do that. Don't do it with solar, because you're paying about the same as a nice new car. The interconnection agreement. That's just the agreement we have with the customer to make sure that there's a safe interconnection between us. What a lot of folks, one of the bits of misinformation going on out there is, if you have solar and the power goes out, you still have power. No, if the power goes out and you don't have batteries for that solar array, your solar array goes out too. So that's a bit of a rough one for some folks, but it does incentivize them getting batteries. And I'll talk a little bit about batteries here towards the end. Permits, it's either the City of Vancouver or Department of L&I. You're going to have to get the permits to have it installed. If you want to do a ground mount system, you're also going to have to get a permit through Clark County. Then the system gets installed, it gets inspected, and the meters are installed. We go and install the meter. Our fees for this entire process, $350. We have $250 for the metering and $100 for the application fee. The contractor should be holding your hand through this whole process. They should be getting the permits for you, getting the documentation process, and making sure that Clark Public Utility is going to get out there to install those meters. So really, when you get your contractor, everything should be relatively seamless. Now, let's talk dollars, because this is where a lot of folks might have a little bit of a problem with solar. Solar is not what I would term an investment. A lot of folks look at it as, well, I'll just get solar and it'll pay for itself, and I'm going to make money on this. Not necessarily so. You have to be more invested as far as other reasons to want to get solar. And just taking what I do is I sit down with a customer and I say, okay, this is the first thing we go through. I take their last 12 months of kilowatt hour reads, load them up. I take the basic service charge, which is about $144 a year, convert it into kilowatt hours, which is 1,764, and then I add them all up. And what I do is I say, this is how much solar you're going to be needing to go 100%. I always start 100% because we can work from there. If they want to get 100% of their bill, 50% of their bill, we can definitely work from there. Tell them how much solar they're going to need. Now, in this particular case, this customer needs 21 kilowatts of solar. Usually what you do is you can multiply that by 3, and that's how many panels you're going to need on your roof. Not everybody is set for solar. They might think they're set for solar. They're not. You need an amazingly southerly facing roof. Okay. When it comes to a southerly facing roof, not a lot of people have it, and some people have it in the front of their house. I personally would love to get solar. My wife has made it very clear that she doesn't want those hideous panels on the front of our house as she's driving up every day. Some people feel that way. I would be fine with it, but I've lost out on that argument. I want you to think of all the houses you go to and how many of them have southerly facing roofs in the back of their house. Now we have taken all the inventory in Clark County and narrowed it down to just a few people. I want you to think of all the people that live in condos, live in apartments, that live in areas where they can't, they're not going to be a good candidate for solar. So when I hear, well, everybody should have solar, my quick response is no, everybody should not. They could find other ways of being more efficient, or perhaps looking at an electric vehicle, any of those measures. Some people that do have solar on the front of their house, potential buyers for the home are going to drive up and go, oh my gosh, it has solar, and they're going to be amazed. And some people are going to go and go, oh, take those panels off front immediately. I don't want to look at that every day. So in this particular case, 21 kilowatts would be about 60 panels, 60 panels. The panels are like 3.5 or 3 by 5 as far as going up on your roof. That takes up a lot of space. Ranch homes, you know, if they have a southerly facing roof, their ranch style house, they have plenty of space on their roof to do this. Another question I ask them, when was the last time you changed your roof or replaced your roof? And everybody thinks they know when they've replaced their roof, but they don't. And when they look into it, they're amazed at what they thought was 5-10 years ago was actually 10-15 years ago, and that roof is going to need to be replaced. If they have to take those panels down to replace the roof, that is nowhere close to free, because labor is what really gets you when you're doing a project like this. So some companies, some of the solar companies, what they do is they include, you know, if you needed a roof replacement as well, and they have that connected. But you know, putting solar on a roof that's 20 years old, no, you don't. They're going to be back up there in 5 years and working on that roof. But $3.25 cost per installed watt. That's kind of the metric. Like if somebody were to say, hey, Bart, I want to lease some commercial real estate in downtown Vancouver, you know, hey, you're looking $13, $17 a square foot. This is the metric for solar, is $3.25 per installed watt. Taking a look at the total watts out of 21,000, you're looking at a total cost to start with on this project that we're looking here at around $70,000. Once we take out the federal tax credit, which is going to be $17,721 in this case, you're looking at a total cost of just over $50,000 for this project. Now, this is what I like to tell customers, because, you know, they want to know, hey, well, when's it going to pay for itself? I take the 23,000 kilowatt hours and I multiply that by 0.0816, which is the going rate of electricity. That means it will produce, either through what you save or what you're credited on your bill, $1,800 a year. Now, when realtors call me and they say, hey, I got this house, I want to sell it, you know, it's got solar, what is the solar worth? Because I got to know as far as selling this home. That $1,882, that is what it's worth every year for how many years the expected life is left. So if it was built, if the solar was put up 5 years ago, I would say you have another 20 years at $1,882 a year. And that's what it's worth. Simple payback in years, 26.79. So when folks are saying, hey, look, I want to do this as an investment, That's quite a payback to achieve as far as in years. So I want customers to be fully aware of this, because one of the things that I hear is, well, yeah, but it'll make my power bill go away. It's going to pay for 100% of my power bill. And, we could build a nuclear generator on the side of your house and make your power bill go away every month. It's just going to cost $6 billion to put a nuclear generator on the side of your house. Scale that to relative terms. If the investment is going to cost you a considerable amount of money to simply make your power bill go away, that's like going in and, buying a car and saying, hey, look, I don't want to negotiate the price of the car. I just want to negotiate the payments. People actually do that. And, that's not something you want to do. You want to start with the price of the car, and then you want to go to the payments as far as the negotiation goes. It's kind of the same deal that you're working at here with solar. So, the cost of it is a bit high right now without the incentives, but a lot of solar is going out there. Because when I talk to folks, I'm like, well, is this your forever home? Are you going to be here for the next 25 years? And if their answer is yes, and this is where I plan to be, then yeah, let's look at this. Or no, I'm fine with this, and I believe when I sell the home, it's going to be worth more, and I'm going to be able to recoup that money back. Okay, fantastic. Or I just want solar on my house. I want that feeling of green power and harvesting a natural resource at my home. I totally buy off on that, because I love those arguments. And that's kind of what it comes to when you're looking here. Distributed energy resources is a fancy way of saying that you are generating the power somewhere else other than where Clark Public Utilities is generating it. So what can that look like? That can look like solar. That can look like solar and batteries. That can look like just batteries. That can look like somebody has a diesel generator or propane generator at their house in case of an emergency. It can look like several different things. Because to us at Clark Public Utilities, it's just not a matter of energy and how you're going to get the energy. It's not just a matter of saying, well, we're going to get it from this dam. We're going to get it from the River Road generating plant. We're going to get it from California. We're going to get it from the open market. We also look at how we're going to move it. It's just as important as getting the energy as moving the energy, because everybody's excited about having high-powered transmission lines in their backyards, aren't they? No, they're not. And they make that very clear. So if you even think about adding lines where existing transmission lines are right now, people get upset because they don't like the EMF. They don't like the idea of what it can do. And we're doing nothing but growing. Vancouver is not growing out. Vancouver is growing up. There's nowhere left really to build. There's a few neighbors. I live in West Minnehaha, and I'm telling you right now, there's these fields are being filled up really quick that used to be full of horses are now being filled with townhomes. So things are changing rather quick. And how we're going to be able to get that power to them is going to be challenging. Also, what's challenging is the natural gas market. And, there's a lot of groups out there that want to get rid of natural gas for residential or commercial uses. I'm not trying to argue that either way. The only thing I'm trying to say is if they don't, then we have to find a way to get that electricity to them, because now they're going to need even more than what they had before. You're not using natural gas so much in the winter. In the summertime, you are using it in the wintertime. And so if we have to hit not only our peak time, are going to exceed that, it's going to be a lot of transmission. Batteries. Everybody likes to talk about batteries. And when you're looking at it as a distributed energy resource, somebody can have not have solar at their house, but have batteries. We are getting a few of those installations. And if the power goes out, they keep going. Now, what does a battery look like? It's, gosh, the size of a suitcase, a large suitcase. Goes in their garage usually. And what they'll do is they'll create a critical loads panel. So you'll look at your house panel and you'll say, if there was an outage, what do I desperately want on? Your HVAC system, if it's all electric, you're going to burn through that battery real quick. And if you think you're going to have the battery on everything in your house panel, I had a customer call me not too long ago and say, my battery ran out in 45 minutes. So what was the point? And I'm kind of like, okay, did you have it hooked up to everything? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, then it should have gone out in 45 minutes. When they do create a critical loads panel, you'll see things like the water heater, the kitchen lights, the freezer, refrigerators, stuff like that, that they want to keep going during the outage so that things don't go bad. I've even seen a wine cooler on a critical loads panel, which I thought was pretty excessive, but hey, their wine's important, so great. Batteries, first question I ask, when was the last time your power went out? And if you're living out, usually when I have them on the phone, I know where they live. So it's a loaded question. Our power, when you're seeing the power of 50, 70,000 people out across the river, and we have 5,000 people out, and we have them restored in a couple hours, it's a real tough sale for them to say, I need a battery. Because if your power, when I say to them, when was the last time your power went out? I don't remember. Well, then let's talk about why you need a battery. And I'm not trying to dissuade them from getting a battery. I'm just trying to save them $5,000, $10,000 of their money for something that they may not need. So then I ask them 3 questions. 1, do you have somebody in the home with medical issues? So if the power went out, you'd have to get them to the hospital in 45 minutes in case the battery went out. Yes, let's talk about a battery if that's the case. Do you have sensitive electronic equipment that you want to make sure is always on? Yes, let's talk about a battery. Do you have a well that has a pump so that if the power went out, it would also take out your ability to get water to the home? Yes, okay, let's talk about a battery. Other than that, once we get to this part of the conversation, they usually don't want to get a battery. And good for them. Any way that I can help them get a battery, I'd love to do it, but still. Green power. A lot of customers want the ability to generate a natural resource at their home, whether this be solar, rain barrels, things that you could utilize at home, and you can water your lawn, you can water your garden, or you can generate electricity. They want to do this. I have some customers that will say, well, I have a stream that runs through my property and I want to do hydro. I send them over to the county and say, go through the permitting and look at what you have to do for an environmental impact study on watershed. And usually they don't call me back. Getting a hydro project in Clark County can be challenging because there's a lot of permitting that has, even if it's a stream in Yakult that in some form or fashion is going to feed another stream, that's going to feed another stream, that's going to go into the Columbia, that's going to go into the ocean. You are part of the whole watershed. So hydro is challenging. I'll leave it at that. Wind, even more so. A lot of folks think, I'm going to put a windmill at my house. Okay, if you're going to put a windmill at your house that's going to generate any significant amount of electricity, you need a 13 to 17 mile steady wind. Difficult to do. Some places, yes, they do have that much wind. But at the same time, the real problem with wind isn't installing it, isn't net metering it. The problem with wind is getting somebody to do maintenance on it. You have a working mechanical piece of equipment. Somebody's going to have to get up there and oil it. They're going to have to maintain it. They're going to have to replace parts. And finding somebody to do that is definitely challenging. We have about 3 or 4 windmills in Clark County, and I think maybe one of them works. The other one is challenging to get it to work. So solar is pretty much what we're talking about. And does it generate green power? Of course it does. And where they're sourced, that's a bit of an issue. The materials are definitely interesting to dispose of, but we haven't really hit that problem yet. That is a problem that will come down the road in the future. When these panels need to be disposed, they're going to have to be properly disposed. When you look at our portfolio, Clark Public Utilities, about 25 to 30% of our power comes from a natural gas cogen plant down on Lower River Road. And about 60% of our power comes from dams, which don't generate any carbon. Now, our River Road generating plant does generate carbon. Not much, because it's a cogen plant, because what it is a big, massive engine, like on a jet. And the natural gas goes in it, fires the engine, and gets the turbines moving. That generates so much heat that the residual heat left over moves a boiler, and the boiler has a turbine. So basically, all of this is generating the electricity. The nice thing about the River Road generating plant is that if the price of power on the market is cheap enough, we can turn off the plant and buy off the open market. Now, we have a reasonably green portfolio. It's not like some places in the Northeast where their entire power is coming from coal. So as far as transitioning Clark Public Utilities into a greener utility, it's not moving the needle much. But I do think what's important is that people feel as if they are part of the process, and they are part of the process. And they can once again generate that electricity at their house. They definitely feel like part of the solution. What else do I have here? That's pretty much all I have. And I've gabblered for 40 minutes and it feels like 10. But I'm totally open to taking any questions. Does anybody have any questions out there?
When's the next incentive year?
Great question. Washington State Legislature will pop up every so often and say, hey, we're going to do an incentive for residential solar. They don't give much warning, and I try and pump it out there, but it's tough. And they had one for years, the first one, and nobody paid attention to it. And the price of solar went from like $9 an installed watt to like $5.50 an installed watt. And then finally people started picking up on it. But I think it's safe to say every 5 years you could be looking at a residential incentive. Right now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get a low income community solar type incentive. Community solar is where basically we have at our 8600 Northeast 112th Ave, right off Patton Parkway, we have a bunch of solar panels out there, and we allowed people to buy in shares for those solar panels. You're probably not going to see a project like that from us in a while. What I think you might see in the near future, building code for the Washington State Energy Code, which is becoming quite an issue here in Washington as of recent. You can get credits if you do certain things. So for instance, if you do solar, you can get up to 3 credits in building your home. And then you can meet how many credits you need in order to get that accomplished. We've been talking to some contractors, developers about, well, what if, does the solar need to be on the house? What if the solar were somewhere else in let's say a well field on Fruit Valley Road? And you load the solar up down there, and then what you do is you measure what the solar produces for those 3 credits. That comes to about 9 panels in our world. And if you could measure that and then take that amount that it's generated and apply it to the customer's bill that lives in West Minnehaha, do you really need to have it on their roof, or could you put it somewhere else? So we're working through that right now. And that's something that you could see in the near future for new homes. But that's what we're looking at for new incentives. It could be 5 years, it could be 10. The way that solar is getting cheaper and more prevalent, I don't know if they're going to be as eager, because they've already put 2 out there, and the last one cost them $110 million. So we'll see what the future ones cost them.
Excellent.
Great
Thanks
question.
so much. This has been so informative.
Hey, my pleasure. This is a lot of the conversations that I have with folks every day.
Well, and being
I
a
think,
realtor,
a lot of what I hear. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I know about some of the incentives, like if you hook up 3 natural gases, like 3 appliances, et cetera, et cetera. So this has just been really, really great to help, guide my clients on their new builds. And thank you so much, Bart. This has been really great.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Some of the things that I see on Facebook, and Facebook is like always the scariest thing for me when somebody calls and say, hey, I saw this on Facebook. And I immediately go, okay, I've got work to do. First thing is solar's 100% free. on the ad. And let me define free for you. Free is, well, if you're with Clark Public Utilities right now and you pay $125 on the equal payment program, which, you know, is just basically spreading your payments out all year long. If I'm a solar contractor, why don't you install with me? And what I'll do is basically put all your solar up at 100% and you pay me $125 every month. So it's free to you because you would have paid that anyways. Another one that I hear is the utility is going to be raising rates every year 2 to 3%. Okay, the utility has not raised rates since 2011. And the last 3 years, we have given you rebates on your power bill. And the reason that we've done that is, do you remember when I said if times are good and we can turn off the River Road generating plant, we can purchase off the open market? We saved $20 million last year, and your commissioners, what they decided to do was to simply give the 20 million back to all of the customers, which is really how we're getting it right and how Texas got it wrong. You know, we give you credits when times are good, but when times are bad, we do our best to keep rates low. If we had to raise rates, of course, you know, we would raise rates, and I can't promise that we won't raise rates in the future. But when I hear, you know, oh, you've got to get solar because the utility is just going to keep raising rates, I'm kind of, well, you know, yeah, and we're going to keep crediting you at the same rate. So, you know, yeah, I get it. You're concerned about the future of raising rates, but we don't really do that. And a lot of organizations, what they'll do is public organizations will raise rates every year, just 2%, just to meet inflation. We don't do that either. If we can get without having to raise your rates, we will do it every single time. That's sort of what keeps us a low price utility and our customers very happy. Gosh, what else do I hear? Making your power bill go away. Yeah, that's about a lot of the things that I hear about solar out there. And solar is going to get more efficient as time goes on. When I first started doing this in like 2015, the panels were 175 watts a panel. Now they're up to 350 watts a panel. So it's definitely becoming more efficient. And a lot of people will say, you know, oh, Clark Public Utilities, why do you want to do this? You're kind of taking yourself out of business. If everybody's generating their own power, what we're going to need you for? And not quite, as you've seen from the numbers, there's definitely a need. Solar doesn't do you much at January at midnight. And that's when everybody needs their power, and we're there to deliver it for them. We're also seeing a huge uptick in electric vehicle installations. So that is a new need that we're addressing and working with other public agencies to partner with them, but also providing incentives for people to install level 2 charging stations at their home is another definite benefit. I mean, if I had it my way, every new house would have a 50-amp plug-in in the garage, which would pretty much have you at level 2 charging, and you could promote it when the sale of the home goes through as EV ready. And that would be another huge step. Because when you look at carbon emissions here in the state of Washington, it's not really the businesses or the homes, it's transportation. Transportation is where the vast majority of carbon emissions are coming from. And addressing that issue is, I think, the way to create a better air quality, lower carbon emissions, and also lower carbon emissions in some more socioeconomically challenged neighborhoods. When you look at where C-Tran travels, when you look at where the garbage truck travels, when you look at all of some of these roads, 4th Plain, Mill Plain, 18th Street, that have all of the apartments and affordable housing and have high traffic, those folks are not getting the best air quality, and they need all the help they can get. Any other questions?
Do you have a type of electric vehicle you'd recommend, since I'm gonna go buy one now?
Well, some people that I talk with and, we start figuring out what it's going to cost for their home, what their home can generate, what it looks like. I'm like, have you thought about an electric vehicle? They are coming out in almost every brand. Tesla, of course, is out there, and you're seeing so many Teslas out there, but BMW is making one. And, if you want to go on a more, something that's not going to be a BMW or a, $90,000 Tesla, you can go as far down as a Leaf. And Leafs are being sold used for, under $10,000. And I think those are great commuter vehicles. They have this very limited range, but if this is something that you're going to just tool around town in, you're going to go back to the grocery store, you're going to go to work, you're going to do something of that nature, and your work is going to have charging stations, then there's so many more options out there. And all the lines are pretty much starting to make that transition to EV.
Thank you so much, Bart, for your
And I
time
just like
today.
them. You know what? I'm actually that kind of dork that, I was one of the skater kids growing up, and you give me an EV scooter, I'm definitely going to be riding it. I have just too much personal information, but I love going up to 39th Street and all the way to the waterfront. It's downhill, and my son and I will get on our skateboards and we will literally ride. And then the fun of the matter is, when you get all the way down to the waterfront, the number 71 bus takes you right back up to the Safeway on 37th in Maine. And I call it urban skiing. You can do that all day long and have a huge uphill and just ride it back uphill. And I tell you, I get more fun out of that. 46-year-old guy going up and down the streets on a skateboard is, and yes, I eat it every now and then, and it's painful. I don't recover like I used to. But I love all you. I've been looking into electric scooter. I've been looking into a one wheel, and a one wheel XR is like $1,800. So I've been looking at the Pint, which is like $950. But all of these things are coming out with electric, and it's going to completely change the way we look at. We're going to stop calling them bike lanes, and we're going to start calling them multi-purpose lanes. Because you're going to see electric, the smaller personal electric vehicles in those lanes. And that's a lot of the reason that you're seeing bike lanes with such prevalency, because they're going to be so much more in the future. Sorry, I geek out on this stuff.
Any other questions? No? Well, Bart, thank you so much again for your time and for all the great information. We'll definitely have this available for our members to watch on YouTube and stuff. But thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for watching.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bart.
Thank you.